Alright, so here we have a consecutive integer problem, and this one says when the smaller of two consecutive integers is added to 5 times the larger, the result is 53. Find the integers. Well, okay, since this is a consecutive integer problem, we're going to do the exact same thing we have done. Our first objective always is to figure out what they're asking us to do. And in this problem, our question here is find the integers. So when we're done, we're going to be giving them an answer that sounds something like, well, the first integer is, the second integer is, and how many integers are we talking about here? We're talking about 2 consecutive integers. So I'm going to be giving my answer as being the first one is, and the second one is. So we're going to let that guide us in writing and figuring out what our variables are going to be. So now we've talked about in another video before about consecutive even integers. But this one doesn't say even, it doesn't say odd, it just says consecutive integers. So let's think about what a consecutive integer is. An integer, of course, we think of as being like a whole number, but it could be negatives also. Consecutive, meaning that it happens one right after the other. So if I were to give an example of what a consecutive integer would be, it might be something like 13 and 14, or maybe 12 and 13, or maybe 5 and 6, something like that, where we start off with one number and then we go to the next one. Well, since we don't have any idea what our first number is going to be, then we're going to have to start somewhere. So we're going to let our first number be x, and then always to get to the next integer, you'd have to add 1. So our second of those 2 consecutive integers would be x plus 1. Alright, now that we've identified our variables, we're going to go back and we're going to write our equation. So it says when the smaller. Well, thinking about how we've listed out these variables, this one would have to be smaller because it has to be the first of those integers. So it says when the smaller is added to 5 times the larger. Well, that means the x plus 1 has to be the larger one. The result is 53. There's our equation. So now it's just a matter of solving our equation. Well, of course, we're going to have to do this distribution first. So here we have x plus 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 1 would be a positive 5 equals 53. Now we can collect our like terms. So x plus 5x would be 6x plus 5 equals 53. And now we're going to move our numbers over to the right. So subtracting 5 from both sides, we get 6x equals 53 minus 5 would be 48. And now we can, still getting our x alone, we can divide both sides by 6. So x will equal 48 divided by 6, which is 8. Well, remember what that stands for. That x we let represent our first integer. So if our first integer is 8, then the next one would have to be 9. Those are consecutive integers.